Hello, everyone. I am Matt Williamson, and I'm glad I waited till after the deadline. So I am recording this Tuesday night. The trade deadline has come and gone. Steelers make a move. Actually, they made two. Preston Smith, I did not see coming. I am not shocked whatsoever that they added a wide receiver in Mike Williams. So let's start with Williams. And the team that they're playing added a corner. You know, maybe the biggest move of the day. Mike Williams. Let's get this out of the way. I thought a 5th round pick was a little steep. I thought you could get him for like a 7 or a pick swap or a 6 that could turn into a 5 or whatever. But it makes me think that there were more teams involved. And it is noteworthy going into the trade deadline, the Steelers had 3 7th round picks, one of which is now going to Green Bay. And they had 2 5th round picks, one of which is now going to the Jets. Now, they're either going to send the Bears a 6 or a 4, depending on Fields, but they'll jump off that bridge when they come to it. So I thought it was a little steep, but what I know about Mike Williams is they were very actively pursuing him in free agency. So he went to New York. There was a plane ticket already bought for him to go from New York to Pittsburgh and never got on that flight. You know, I mean, he signed the contract with the Jets. They weren't letting him leave the building, all that good stuff. Now, his time in New York has been highly uneventful, and he still looked like he was recovering from his injury. And then when he started to look his best, they go out and get Aaron Rodgers' best buddy, Davante Adams, and Williams has to go. Okay. Now, he only played 3 games last year, 2023. So it's been a long road of recovery, to be very honest, you know, and has not looked, watching the Jets tape was not like watching his old Chargers tape. But those 3 games before he got hurt, the most recent tape from last year was exceptional. I mean, like, whoa, this guy is playing the best of his career. And his injury history is not as strong as you think. You know, like all you guys have played fantasy, like, he's questionable a lot, but he hasn't missed that many games. Now, I will say, and it sounds like a joke, but no one falls harder than Mike Williams. I mean, this guy's a big-bodied, 6'4", 225-pound, former top 10 pick that really goes up and gets the football, especially on his best days. But boy, does he land like a ton of bricks, too. Boom. I mean, like, shakes the earth and breaks his spine. I mean, like, the guy is brutal on his body. And he'll block, and he's physical, and a lot of contested catches. But on his best day, I mean, he ran in the 4.4s coming out, and I don't think he's still that guy, but he's a downfield player. And I think they clearly have a plan for him and desire his skill set. Whether you'll get that version, who's to say? But he still is welcome to the club. You know, welcome to the mix. Will he play a lot against Washington? I bet not, but I think Wilson can still tell him, run a go, run a comeback, run a slant, you know. All right, you know, while he's learning things. So I get that. I think very soon he'll be the clear number 2. So there's value there, and therefore you're talking about, well, who's the 3, Jefferson or Austin? Like, okay, those are good conversations to have. Who's the slot? Mix it up. So I like all those things. You only are renting him for the year, though. He's on a 1-year deal, and the 5th round pick for that, for a not superstar receiver, but he has superstar background. I mean, he really does. Star background. So I'm intrigued. But this isn't like insider information, but I get the inkling because they were so interested and he was scheduled to visit the Steelers that I'm sure they had a conversation with Williams' agent before he signed with the Jets. Of course. I mean, that's how you set these things up. And if I'm wondering, did they have a conversation with, hey, we're not going to give you as much as New York inevitably offered him, but we want to sign you to a 2-year deal. And now his stock has dropped. Do you just revisit that and say, hey, assuming he works out here, well, the same offer's on the table. You were interested in it then. Would you be interested in it now? Yes and yes. Okay, let's make this a more permanent arrangement. I think that's possible. So I like it. I don't love it. I thought it'd be a little cheaper, and a lot of receiver things have fallen through. So I think that some of you are probably underwhelmed. But if you get the Chargers version of this guy, which is a little pie in the sky thinking at this point, it's a real difference maker. I mean, it can be. So yeah, there's a little risk involved with a fifth. You had an extra one, but it could pay off big. I mean, it really could. So that's an optimistic view of it, but there you have it. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. From the NFL to college, Bet Online is every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head over to the online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or one of over 150 slot games. You go to the website and use the promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, all caps, to get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. I certainly did not see the Preston Smith trade coming. But they have cap space. It only costs you a 7th round pick. And talk about the player in a minute. And we'll learn more of this as practice time goes on leading up to Washington. But my first thought was, is Herbig maybe not quite as ready as we thought? It's possible. I also absolutely believe they never want to be short at the outside linebacker position. They're going to be greedy there. Give me one more pass rusher. If disaster happens, we do not want to be in that situation like at linebacker and safety last year where you're pulling dudes off the street and just, with respect to the Moons of the world and those guys, they do not want to rely on them. And we always talk about snap count. Highsmith and Watt are playing too many snaps right now. Watt's at like 91%. I mean, that's just too high. And he's a guy that wants to take himself in and out of the lineup. Just to stay fresh, and it's a really, really good 4-man rotation with Herbig. And Smith is a little different than those guys. He's a guy that was a 2nd round pick, coincidentally, from Washington, went big money in free agency to Green Bay. And him and Zadarius Smith, who coincidentally got traded today as well from Cleveland to Detroit, all 4 teams in the division made a trade today. They were a really good pairing. But then Green Bay drafted Lucas Van Ness last year in the 1st round and knew that Smith, who's making $12 million a year from now, was on borrowed time there. And the Steelers, I'm sure, will not give him $12 million next year either. Maybe you can restructure, whatever, but he's a cap casualty most likely 9 out of 10 times after this year. But what kind of player is he? He's big. Both these guys they added are big. And clearly that is a physicality, power, not coincidence. He's 6'5". I bet he's about 275 now. So he definitely is not a 3-4 end. He's not Cam Hayward. But he has about 50-some snaps lining up at defensive tackle. Always like on 3rd and long passing situations. So he doesn't look like Herbig or Watt or Highsmith even. Has really long arms. I mean, he is kind of a softer body type. I'm not saying he's fat, but he could lose a few at his age. He's thick. He's powerful. He goes through his opponents. He keeps them off his body well with those long arms. He's really hard to get around securing the edge in the run game. He's not as twitchy as the Steelers guys. I mean, the Steelers have really good get-off edge players. That's not really what he is. But his stride length is really long, so he eats up a lot of grass with those first 2 strides. So good player. He's had a really good career. I think he had 8 sacks last year. So he's still performing at a strong level, and there was rumors that the Ravens were really interested in him. So maybe they played a little bit of defense with this signing as well. That would make some sense too, because he would have been a really good fit with Baltimore, as is the case. I mean, most of the time, these two teams like the same type of player and the same players. So I get it. It's minimal investment. Maybe you can keep him around after this year. Better version of Marcus Golden, I guess, is one way of looking at it for a veteran. Better career than him, better than he is now. And keep a strength with strength. Last thing I was going to throw out, I mentioned that Washington, the upcoming opponent, traded for Marcus Lattimore. One of the better corners of this generation. The Saints are an absolute nightmare in terms of cap and everything right now. So they're having a fire sale. Good for Washington. I think it's a really good move for them. They gave up a day 2 pick, though. This was a bigger deal. But their outside corners weren't great. I am curious. I don't know how this works because, his first practice in Washington will be Wednesday, the day you're listening to this. Will he immediately follow George Pickens around this entire game? Maybe. He's very capable. Like he used to follow Mike Evans around, et cetera, et cetera. The Saints used him in that way quite a bit, but will he know enough or will they adapt to do it? It was pointed out to me that when they traded for Minka midseason, he played every snap his first game in Pittsburgh. I don't know. I don't think Mike Williams is going to play close to every snap, but I think Lattimore might, and it's a good addition for what happens to be your upcoming opponent. So, good stuff. Leave me comments, drop me a line. I'm Matt Williamson, NFL. Over and out.